Hello, everyone. Welcome to TLC's Webinar Wednesday. I'm your host, Ria Stark, and thank you for joining us for another Wednesday afternoon. Today, we're going to be talking about cataloging authorities with TLC and many of the great benefits our customers receive with Library.Solution. So we also have some nice tips and resources for when you review your records. But before I get into that, I have my usual housekeeping reminders. I'm sure you can all repeat these back to me by heart now. But we are live today. It is being recorded. So if you would like to share this with your colleagues or rewatch it later, that will be available on our website at tlcdelivers.com/webinars starting tomorrow. But as a live participant, you have the opportunity to ask Kim any questions that you'd like regarding cataloging. So anything that you like or want more information on, please use that Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen, and we'll address those at the end of the call. But back to today's topic, improving your search and discovery with TLC cataloging authorities. I've brought in our cataloging expert and product manager, Kim Mumbauer. Kim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ria. Let me get to the next screen here. Hello, everyone. Get my notes here so I don't forget something. So in this session, I'm going to give you an overview of authority control in Library.Solution applications and show you how authority control is working in our latest software version, Library.Solution 5.x. I'm going to show you LS2 cataloging as well as briefly LS2 preferences and LS2 reports. Before I get into the demonstration portion and show you how the features are working in our software, I kind of wanted to give you some reasons why authority control is an essential and critical part of cataloging and best practices. So authority control, the primary goal is to improve search and discovery. That also happens to be the primary goal of cataloging as well. And think about the library user. Someone comes into the library looking for a specific resource. They have an expectation that when they enter a search term, they're going to see all the resources the library owns that have that particular search term somewhere in the content of that title record, also known as a record description. For those of you who are keeping up with RDA standards, they call it now a description, not a record. But anyway, I digress, which is a problem for me because I love authorities and love talking about it. So I might digress frequently. But that's the goal of authority control, is to, as best they can, best the processes can, make it so that when a user is looking for a resource, they are given all resources that contain that same search term. And that's where authority records come in, because that helps control the data in the title records and to return the best results possible during search and discovery. So let me go to the next slide. And I'm just giving you a quick background here before I get into the actual software. So the goal of authority control is achieved in a number of different ways having to do with data. And so the authority control improves data accuracy. Now, how does it do that? And why does it do that? Well, data accuracy is very important. When you think about a contributor name that's listed in that title record, is that individual or that corporate entity, is that the right name for that resource? Is that the right, there's a lot of names, a lot of people, individuals have the same last name, same first name, and the only differences are a middle initial or middle name, or a birth date, or a birth and death date range, or title of nobility. Those are all distinguishing characteristics, so you know that you have the right name associated with that resource. So is that name right? Is it accurate? How about, is that name that's in the record, the heading? I'm using the term heading to mean a term, the content of the authority record, if you want to think about it that way. Is that heading the authorized form of a name? Names are very important to be able to identify the right individual who contributed to that work. So is that name the authorized form of the name? Catalogers who create authority records for Library of Congress and other large organizations follow strict standards to ensure data is accurate, to ensure they have the authorized or preferred form of the name. They have the right birth date, the right death date, and so on. That's all part of making data accurate. And it even goes into subjects or genres. Can you identify the source of that controlled vocabulary that supplied that subject term or that genre term? Is it accurate? So if I'm a cataloger and I see you took a subject from this thesaurus, I want to go to that thesaurus. Am I going to see that full, accurate heading in the thesaurus that I see in a record. So those are all part of data accuracy. Authority control also improves data consistency. And by the way, I'll be talking about these three factors here as I'm showing you the authority control. So you'll hear me referring to this quite a bit. Data consistency. This is where a heading, having a heading in a title record linked to an authority record manages that heading so that all titles containing that heading are linked to a single authority record so that the heading is identical across all of the title records that have that same link to the same name or the same subject or the same genre. And so making data consistent across all records that contain that heading is super critical for search and discovery. If you have variations in spelling and spacing in case, uppercase, lowercase, those are all factors that could cause a search to only return half the results, not all of the results. And one benefit to having authority control integrated into the software like we have with library.solution is that when a cataloger is editing an authority record, editing a local authority record, moving linked titles from one authority record to another, the process will automatically update the heading in the title records that are linked to that authority. So you don't have to go out and find 1,000 title records and change the genre, for example, or change the subject, or change the name, put the right birth date in. Authority processes will do that for you, which is very nice. All right, I want to mention data quality. Now, data accuracy and data consistency are part of data quality, but I wanted to mention a couple of other criteria that are used to say this is good data quality, and that applies to libraries. So think about the word completeness. Is that heading as complete as possible? Does it have all of the elements for that subject heading that you took from a thesaurus or a controlled vocabulary? Is that heading valid? Does that have the right birth date, the right spelling, the right middle name for our names? All these things are considered, is it valid? If it's valid, it's good quality. How about uniqueness? Is that heading that contains that particular unique combination of words, is that uniform across all titles, or is it going to be some variations? So best data quality, it's a unique heading. It applies to all records containing that same heading. And finally, timeliness. That's another benefit to having authority control that's integrated inside the software like we have with library.solution. So authority control process is run every night. There's a process that checks each customer's authority records in their database and looks at the Library of Congress authority records, goes out and sees if there's a newer version of that Library of Congress authority record. Library of Congress updates authority records fairly often because there's birth dates, death dates, changes in wording, spelling, and that sort of thing occur often. And so the process that we have in place, when it finds an update, it brings a copy into the customer database, replaces the existing record, and then goes out and updates the heading and all the titles that are linked to that authority record. That keeps the data most accurate and most current, which is what you want with data quality. Okay, I've bored you probably long enough, but I wanted to also mention which fields in the title record are under authority control. All this I wanted to give you as a context for when I show you the software, it'll make more sense. And some of you may not be aware of the data fields that are in a title record that are under authority control, and I want to give you a list here. Names or agents, corporate entities, individuals, families, any name essentially is under authority control. Subjects are also under authority control. You want to have a source of that term identified. You want to know what vocabulary supplied that information. Or if it's a local subject that you needed to create, it's identified as such. Genres are also there's a controlled vocabularies, and there's hundreds of them available to catalogers. So we have to identify the source, but it's a way of controlling the data. It's good data quality. And then finally, under MARC data format, which is what we're using still for that underlying data record, uniform series titles are under authority control. In linked data formats, they're just titles. They're not under authority, but we're still using MARC. And so series titles are actually a subset of uniform titles. Now, when I first learned cataloging, I thought, what is this uniform title? What in the world does that mean? It took me a long time to kind of grasp it. It's like a really abstract concept. but I have a definition here. A uniform title is a distinct title to assign to a work, either because the title had different versions of the title appeared over time, different publications use that same work, use a different title. Sometimes when it's a translation of a title, you'll have that extra title in the record to give access points. Or if there's no title for a particular aspect of that work, the cataloger feels it needs that extra access point, so creates a uniform title. And as I said, series titles are a subset of uniform titles. The catalogers think of them as two things. They are in different types of data fields in the record. Uniform titles go in one set of record fields in the record, and series titles go into other sets. But they're all the same thing in terms of mark authority. Okay, one more slide, and then I'll actually get into the software. Just want to run through real fast. Oops, I got to get back to my notes. I was going too far. So in library.solution, we have integrated authority control that's real time. Every time a title is saved to the database, authority verifications, authority matching processes run. And so the processes look the customer's database first to see if there's a national authority record or a local authority record already available. If it doesn't find the record to match that heading that's in the title record, it goes out to the TLC's National Authority Database. We refer to that as its mark authorities, which is different from its mark bibliographic, which is a subscription database for copy cataloging. But its mark authorities comes with LS2 cataloging. It's free. If it finds a match there, great, it pulls in a copy of that record. If it doesn't find a match, it goes and creates a local authority using the data that's in that heading in that title record. So it creates a new local authority. Now, catalogers also have that same access to that same data. From LS2 cataloging, catalogers can access TLC's its mark authorities. Catalogers can also access their own local authority records. They can create a local authority record at any time. And finally, the greatest thing ever with LS2 cataloging, in my granted prejudiced opinion, are glossaries. I can't tell you how important this is for catalogers. It saves so much time, because previously I had to manage spreadsheets of all the subjects and genres and names, all the things that I needed to use on a regular basis. I had to keep spreadsheets for, and it takes time. Now we have them for you. Glossaries are provided for the cataloger, and I'll show you how that works. And we provide glossaries for genres, awards, roles, subject subdivisions, and a variety of characteristics that are used for the RDA compliant fields. And I'll be showing you some examples of all of those. Okay, that was a lot of talking. All right, I'm going to switch over to now and show you the demo, show you the software. So Ria, I think you have a poll.
Yeah, thanks,
You
Kim.
might want to share.
No, the talking is great. That's what they're here for. They want to learn from you. So we also want to know who is here from the audience. So in just a moment, you're going to see a poll on your screen about how you catalog. So for those of you when you're cataloging, what percentage of your time is spent on original cataloging versus copy cataloging? And then for the follow-up question, there's two questions on your poll. If you are doing copy cataloging, which resources do you use the most? And that's multiple choice. You can add as many as you like on there. And I'll let that poll run for just a minute while some answers come in. But Kim, oh, I caught you right as you're taking a sip. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm good. I'm good.
I was going to ask you, can you give a quick definition of the difference between original cataloging and copy cataloging?
Sure. Copy cataloging means you find a bibliographic record somewhere or other, and you download a copy of that record from a different variety of sources. Could be any number of sources, and you've got some of them listed there. And you put a copy of that in your database, and then you make edits to make it match what you need it to be. If you're going to really substantially change the data, then you want to give it a new control number, but that's a minor thing. But at any rate, copy cataloging, a lot of the subjects, genres, all the enrichment are already there, and they have contributors are all listed, and standard numbers, and all that data is there. So you don't have to spend quite as much time doing all that research, because original cataloging means you have a blank slate. You've got to pull out all the information from the resource that you're cataloging. You have to research that you have the right names, that you find the right subjects. There's a lot of extra work. I think the best I ever could manage cataloging a DVD from scratch. DVDs are more complicated, but it was at least 35 minutes. Took me 35 minutes to find all the contributors and all those pieces. Whereas copy cataloging, if I can find a record, about 5 minutes.
That's
Yeah,
quite the difference.
yeah.
And that is perfect. So our poll results are in, and about 60% of our audience is 30% original, 70%
Mm.
copy cataloging. And especially if it takes 35 minutes to original catalog, yeah, versus 5 minutes. And then our two number one resources that have been selected are ItSmark, which I believe you'll be talking a little bit about later, and OCLC WorldCat. So those are neck and neck. All right, I'll let you
Great.
get back into the software.
All right, so let's take a look. Of course, I'm not in LS2 cataloging at the moment. I just want to show you a authority control setting that's configured here in LS2 preferences. This is our administration application where you set up all kinds of things for the various circulation rules, for locations. There's a lot of administrative settings in this application. But I want to point in particular the authority control setting that's under import settings. Because this is how you tell the system how you want to handle local authorities. So this import setting is the sort of set it and forget it, where you can set up some defaults because you actually access import from LS2 cataloging. And it's asking you, okay, I have a local authority here, meaning I couldn't find a match anywhere. Processes just didn't see a match. It's going to create a local authority. Do you want to have it verified locally, or do you want to keep it unverified? And what does that mean exactly? Well, verify locally means the local authority is created and saved as such. And the user has to kind of look for it. The cataloger has to go look for it in a report, which I'll be showing you, or in our authorities tab, which I'll be showing you, to review that data to make sure it's correct. Remember those data quality things. It's taking the data. Local authority record is based on the data in the title record, that field. It may or may not be correct. It may or may not be complete. It may or may not be valid for that individual or that subject. So these are all things that catalogers have to be aware of. Now, we have a lot of customers that don't have a cataloger available to do authority management, who doesn't have time to review all these unverified authorities that might be coming in. And so they select verify locally. There's reports available, so anyone can review that data later. But it's a warning. It's just a warning thing that just to be aware of the differences. Now, keep unverified, which you'll be seeing here, and when I get to a title record, is just sending you an alert that this data has not been reviewed to determine its accuracy, its consistency, its correctness. You recognize all these names that I referred to. We have some customers that who have time or want to keep up with it and check those unverified authorities, because sometimes they need to move those titles to a different authority record. That's not the correct data, and they want to review that. And so this is just a matter of determining how you want to handle your data as it's coming in. Now, there's a second setting that controls system processes. Remember, this is import settings, so it's only applied on import. There's a second setting that's in the database that only TLC staff can access that asks the same two questions: verify locally or keep unverified. And this is applied during system type processes like download from ItSmark Bibliographic, our subscription resource there. Z3950 download, that would be if you have a membership with OCLC and you're searching that library's WorldCat, or you are searching other target libraries who are sharing their databases. Those comes in as system processing. Or if you're a new customer and you're getting implemented, your database is being built, this is when your local authorities are going to be verified or not. So just be aware that those two settings are important. All right, enough of preferences. Let's get into LS2 cataloging, and let me get out here. I was checking something a little bit ago. So I'm in LS2 cataloging, as you see, and I'm in a title space grid here, a listing of my spaces. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. So first of all, you'll notice these yellow alert bars. This is letting me know that there's an unverified authority in that title record. When I imported this file of records, or I downloaded this file, the example records here from ItSmark, I left it keep unverified, but I could have chosen verify locally and then I wouldn't see the yellow bar. But at any rate, this is one of my databases and I like to see that authority is working. So I like to review my authorities. I love authorities, as you might be able to tell. So let's take a look at a record here. Now, oops, went too far. You can still add items, edit the title record, publish it to make it available to all of library.solution applications, even if an authority is unverified. What it is a signal to catalogers who are working with this data that someone might need to review these unverified authorities to make sure they're accurate, make sure they're correct, and make sure they're consistent with the headings that we already have in our databases. Those are just as an alert. So let me first show you to prove that, I mean, of course, I'm sure you believe me, but let me just prove authority control is actually running. Just need to make this a little bit bigger so you follow. I'm looking at the MARC record. Don't worry about all this other stuff if you're not familiar with the MARC record, but the authority control process, as it runs and finds a match, it assigns this particular subfield. It puts the data in here indicating where that match was found, which data, this is a local authority record, and here's the authority record control number for that name. And down here, if I go to subjects, you'll see the same subfield 0 at the end of the row, the end of the field. And this is a prefix we use for Library of Congress. So a LC authority was found, and here's the control number. And so this lets any cataloger or anybody who's looking at the MARC data, in this case, they can see that this is a valid authority record, and it's the authorized form of this, whatever the heading is. In this case, a subject, could be a name. And then you'll see them elsewhere. Here's an LC authority assigned to this name. So these are all, I just wanted to prove to you, as the title is brought into the database, this authority verification is running. And if when I go to publish the record, authority verification runs a second time in case I made changes. So authority verification is really going on all the time behind the scenes. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. All right, for those of you who are cataloged a while, you probably recognize this is a very prolific author, James Patterson. Now, the James Patterson who is the author of this work, because I'm very familiar with his work, very prolific. He has a birth date. His authorized form of the name has a birth date in it. This was originally probably a vendor record or a publisher record, and the cataloger who originally worked on this record, they did not run authority control. So they just put in the name, last name, first name of the individual. They didn't run it against authority control. And this is wrong, because I know this happens to be James Patterson, who was born in 1947. And so I want to make sure that this title gets connected to the authority record that's linked to hundreds of other title records for this author. Hope that makes sense. So how do I fix that? Well, in here, in LSG cataloging, I just click on this field to bring up my search box, and it automatically opens to the local tab because it's a local authority here. But I want to click on ITSMARC. This is our ITSMARC authorities, so I know this is our national authority database, and I'm looking for James Patterson that was born in 1947, and here it is. So I can select that. Now, James O. Bourne, I did some research already to confirm, but I know he is a valid LC authority, and there's only one. If there was 2 or more entries under this name, I would have to do research to make sure that is the right individual. And this one is not listed in the statement of responsibility, but this is a book on CD, and there is a narrator, and this is the narrator. There's a note confirming that here. Now, this is not the right Joshua Kane. I did check that too. So when I click on this field, I can search again, and here are the results from ITSMARC, and I have 2 Joshua Kanes. And the Joshua Kane I want as a narrator has this qualifying information in parentheses, the actor. And I check local in case there happened to be one already, but there isn't. If there was one, I would probably fix it right now if I had time. Otherwise, I would come later and fix it. But right now, I'm going to select this. Now we have roles. We have glossaries in a number of places in the editor. I love glossaries. So we have a role glossary, and so I can look for the roles. Roles are very important in search and discovery. So I'm going to select author, and you notice it brought up everything that has the word author in that role. This glossary contains terms that are provided by the Library of Congress for the majority of the records of the glossary, but there are a few that we've added on a customer request, specifically applying to graphic novels that are in common usage, but the Library of Congress hasn't approved them in their list Now, it's very important to establish a relationship between the name and the work. So we know that this individual, what did he do for this work? Well, he was an author. James Patterson, I believe, also read, I may be mistaken, but I believe he read some of these. He was a narrator in some of his audiobooks. And so we want to identify this is James Patterson, the author, not James Patterson, the narrator, because there could be someone in the LS2 pack, our online catalog, who's looking for all the audiobooks that James Patterson narrated. And so he or she wants to see James Patterson with a role of narrator, not the role of author. Very important. Put that in there. And of course, I can add as many roles as I need to. Some cases, thinking of Clint Eastwood, sort of a typical example for a DVD. Clint Eastwood was the actor, the director, the screenwriter, maybe not the screenwriter, but he was definitely the actor, producer, executive producer, multiple roles, which is good. Hopefully you're entertained so far. Okay, genres. Very important to add genres for as many as apply. We have a glossary for that. Looking at my notes here to make sure I remember all the ones I want to put in. So audiobooks is a more typical term to use as a genre for book on CD. So I'm going to search for audiobooks. Now, in some of our glossaries, we identify the source code here. Catalogers are very particular about which controlled vocabulary they want to use for genres. It's not just genre, it's form. Form is a cataloging term because it's not really a collection, not really, it's kind of like a media type, but it's a form. If you have questions, ask me more about the forms later. At any rate, I want to include that. So this is really a genre form that I'm looking at right here. Okay, we also have suspense fiction, right? So I just have to type some of the word and the whole thing will pop up. And finally, I just want to add another thrillers. Sometimes people don't search by the word thriller, they're going to search by the word thrillers in plural. And I want to make sure I have access. And I have choices here. I'll pick the LCGTFT. This is the LC genre thesaurus. Okay, moving along. Gotta hurry because I love this stuff and I can get buried in it. I'm going to come back to subjects in another record. I'm just going to move quickly down to awards I'm going to do in a different record. I just want to point out we have glossaries for all of these resource characteristics. We have one for the target audience level where it applies. And this terminology is coming from the MARC data. We might have chosen different names for that, but at any rate, forms, there can be any number. Book on CD is added automatically, but I can add fiction. I want to add that. I could add novel. I can add as many as I feel are appropriate. Now, some of this data, some of these characteristics you may not need for this particular format. Some of them apply to audiobooks, like we have mono here. Now, we do have a sound glossary. It doesn't have mono in it, but it's data in the record, so we display it. But it's not listed in this drop-down glossary. Some of them apply to video games or movies or television programs. We have a glossary for that. Glossary for projections for movies, and regions for DVD or Blu-ray, that sort of thing. We also have some video games players here. So we have a glossary. So we prefer to use controlled vocabularies for some of these things wherever possible, because again, data consistency is achieved with that. And that improves search and discovery, remember? I know you're going to get bored with me repeating that frequently. Let me save and continue. Let's just jump quickly to another record so I can show you a few more aspects. We haven't really talked about series, so let's take a look at series. Now, series title is very subjective. Each library can choose how they want to have their series title entered into the record, into the title record. Library of Congress made some series authority records, but not as many as there are series out there in the world. So it's really up to the library. And it can go by different names. I've seen 4 or 5 different variations on the same series titles from different libraries using different series titles. Now, this one happens to be incorrect. Again, it's a vendor record as well. And we don't use full uppercase for a series title. It's going to be mixed case. Proper names, the first letter of the word of the proper name is capitalized, but the rest is not capitalized if it's not a proper name. So I want to change that. And I have 2 options. I can add a whole new series, create a separate series for this and create it right here on the fly. Or I can edit this authority record, and that's what I'm going to show you here. So I clicked on it to open. Now I can edit that local authority right here. And Thorndike is should have copied it to a document on my desktop that I could quickly go through this, but I'm a fast typist. So Thorndike Press is capitalized. The rest of it is sort of subjective. I'm going to make these all, the first letter is lowercase. But you could choose to make them first letters capitalized if you so choose. What's important here is if for all the books that you own at your library that have this, that are coming from this Thorndike Press Youth Large Print series collection, they all have the same, they're all linked to the same local authority record. They all are consistent data. Remember, data consistency, data accuracy. And I'm going to save and verify now. Now, this is a user permission. So if I'm a cataloger working in title record, I don't have permission to verify authorities. I can still save the data. I can still make those changes. And someone else will come along and verify it later. But I'm a power user, so I'm going to verify. And now I have my series. Okay, I'll skip genres. We already showed you that. There's no subject here, and I want to show you subjects. So I looked at a regular print record and found some, I think it's siblings. Found a couple authorities. I won't put them all in. I'll just put one. Roll this up a bit. So I have two options from LC. This is Itzmark, LC authorities. Now, there's nothing in parentheses here, but there is LCSHAC listed here. This is the source code for the Library of Congress Children's Subject Thesaurus. That's what that stands for. And whereas this one that doesn't have that source identified, that's Library of Congress subject headings. There are millions in our database. I couldn't even tell you the last time I checked was 10 million or more. I think I'm right. At any rate, that would be too much clutter in these displays. So we don't display it if it's Library of Congress subject heading, but we will display it if it's a children's thesauri. Now you can choose whichever one is best for your library. This is a book for middle grades. I may want to use this one, which I will do now. And now I want to add a subdivision. I want to identify it as fiction. So I've got a glossary for that too, subject subdivisions. This one's about 3,000 entries right now. So I can choose fiction. Now, juvenile fiction is also an option that's usually assigned to the Library of Congress subject heading. That's just their practice, but I just need fiction. What's important here is to indicate that this is a book about siblings and it's fiction. Now, there's other subjects which I can add, but you get the idea. I select the subject, search for it. If I need a subdivision, I'll add it, and then I move on. Okay. Awards. I wanted to mention awards. We have a glossary for awards as well. I can't remember the book that whether you talk about. There's an app for that. Is that the phrase now?
Yep, there's a
There's
glossary
an app for that. Oops, Newbery Award. We have a separate glossary for Newbery Award for awards. We have most of the award. Let me just check my notes. Medal. Yep. This book. He is. I'm looking at the picture, which is a he on the cover. We have most of the national and international awards listed in this glossary, and we have a good portion of the state awards. But every new customer that joins Library.Solution lets us know about new state awards that we don't have, they're not in the glossary, and so we're continually expanding this. Any customer requesting a glossary term be added is something the product managers do. I'm one of the product managers that works on it, so we're always updating, always adding. Hang on, this one also won the Coretta Scott King Award, and I don't have to type the whole thing. I just have to type a few words. Now, this is different from an awards note. There is an awards note where you can type whatever content you want. Usually catalogers want to put a year in there. This is a controlled vocabulary, again, to improve data consistency, because we want this to be a facet in LS2 pack eventually, and so it's in a separate field from the awards note. It's in its own field, and that way it's controlled vocabulary because, again, that improves data consistency, and we have better search and discovery experiences. Okay, that's enough for the title tab. Let me jump over to authorities tab, where you can also access, let me save as draft, save my changes, get back out. Great, I have a form. I must have added an empty field. So let me drop down. Yep, there it is. I like it when they put it in red so I can see it. Now I'll save. Okay, authorities tab. We have two parts to it. The first is a list of all the unverified authorities. Now, this is a test database. We don't really have anyone working to keep the authorities updated. We don't have time. So, and it changes. We run a new build every time we have a release. So it's constantly being replaced by our backup. At any rate, we keep a list of unverified authorities here, and you can see the source. So if I have chosen keep unverified and I'm one of the catalogers verifying this, I can easily say, okay, I'm going to keep that fast authority. Let me verify it. Just go ahead and verify it. I can look at the link titles if I wished, but otherwise I can just verify it. This is a source. I don't need a source note unless I'm picky, in which case I could go out to the FAST online database and grab the URI that points it to exactly to the authority record and paste that in there. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and verify it. And it disappears from the list as soon as you verify it. We have a nightly process that runs every night. Yeah, of course, every night. That goes through this unverified list of local authorities and it deletes any unverified authority that's no longer linked to a title. These are all linked to titles, which is why they appear here. And here's a personal name, which I want to investigate. So there is a LC authority for that, I think. So let me go to the other feature in Authorities tab, where I can actually search for a local, for a subject or any other authority, local authority record, I guess that's a good way to say it. And let me just type that name in, bring up Lauren Singer. There's also a create local authority, which I'll show you in just a second. So this is an unverified authority. When the search results come back, they're divided into 3 tabs. This is the local unverified authority that I just saw on that previous list on that page. And I'll check verify. Do we already have one? No. And then I'll check ITSMARC. There is an LC authority for this personal name. You can see it's confirmed here. I don't know if anyone's linked to that. No, I'm the first record. But I want to move this unverified local authority to that LC authority. When it comes to names, it's better to have LC authorities records whenever possible, because you know that that cataloger who created that authority record is very particular and made sure that the data was accurate. So I'm going to use find a better heading. Makes it easy for catalogers. And here's that results come out very similar to the way they do in title tab of the editor. ITSMARC, this is ITSMARC authorities. And here's our local. And I can check there, but yep, this is the same one that I'm moving. So I'm selecting this ITSMARC heading. I'll select use this heading. And now this authority record is no longer linked to a title record. And I can let it get deleted overnight, or I can go ahead and delete it right now, so I don't have to look at it anymore. And now when I go, I think it might take a minute for the indexes to update, so I'm not gonna, well, I guess I will since I'm here. Maybe it'll be there. And it is there. Okay, faster than I thought. All right, let me show you how to create a local authority, and then we'll move on to another topic. So I'm cataloging a book on space telescopes, and I want to create a new topical subject for the James Webb Space Telescope. Fascinating topic, by the way, because there's a chapter in this book that I'm cataloging on the James Webb Space Telescope, which is returning wonderful images, in case you all haven't been paying attention to all those great images that are coming back. And it's a local. It's my own creation. Library of Congress doesn't have it. I've already checked. That would probably be my first step before I went to create a local authorities. I would check to see if it's already there, but there isn't one. And I want to add a source note, and I want to put in the name of the book, which I didn't make a note of course, but this is where I would enter. I'll just make up something here just to show you what I usually do. Telescopes, yep. And I put the author in. I'm just going to make up something right here because this is not going to last very long, this record. And then I might put the publication date. Now, of course, I can add a C reference if I need to. And I'm going to go ahead, create and verify now. So now when I look for the James Webb's, search, nothing under unverified, which is good. And it hasn't updated the index quite yet. So might come back later, but it takes about a minute to update. So not to worry about it. It will be there eventually. And let me check my notes. I think that's it for now. I'm going to show one more thing, which is authority management and using LS2 reports. while I'm jumping over to LS2 reports, Ria, I think you had another poll.
I do. And I also see a lot of questions coming in. That's great. We'll
Okay,
be here till the end of the hour. But let me launch this next poll, which talks about authority record management. So, how often do you review your library's authority records? Anywhere from regularly, or maybe when you have to, never, or, Kim, I would review them more if I knew more about it. Anywhere along that scale. And we've gotten lots of folks coming in already. About half are saying regularly, and about 20% are saying I would do more if I knew more about it. So
that's
kind of
good.
a fair split there. All right.
That's actually very encouraging.
Uh,
Happy,
it
happy
is.
about that.
All right, so I'll go ahead and close that. But yeah, 47 regularly, 24% would love to learn more.
Okay, well, great. Well, fortunately for you all, I'm just going to briefly show you the reports. I'm working on videos on authority management workflows for LS Community Catalogers Corner, and I've already got the videos done for running the reports and identifying problems. I'm currently working on the reports the videos for correcting all the various types of authorities. And there's also an authority management webinar coming up. So keep an eye out for that. So I'm in LS2 reports and I'm on team content and I want to go to LS2 cataloging. And under the authorities, there's 2 reports available to you for authority management. It's much easier to work from a report because you can keep track. I export to Excel and I keep track of where I stop and start. Typically, authority management, you do when you have a few, like 20 minutes free each day, you do try to do a little bit each day. So here's an authority report that just, you can choose local verified or local unverified. And of course, you can select one specific type of authority, or you can do them all. And then you could even refine it down further with the first couple letters of the heading or the date range that the authority was added. So you have different choices. Now I export the results to a spreadsheet so that I can work with it. But if you run the report and leave it here sitting in LS2 reports, you get a column showing in the results that have links to all the titles. So you can actually click on that little count of titles that are linked to the authority record and open up a list of all the titles, and you can open up the title records that way. Really helpful. And thank you, Faith, for adding that recently. Really helped. And then there's a national authority report that offers pretty much the same criteria, except you just have to select the authority type for the national authorities in your database. This is very helpful for review. Okay, that does everything I wanted to cover. Let me go back to the slide deck and advance to the next. Hang on. There we go.
Yeah, thanks,
Officially,
Kim.
Q&A.
All right, we have gotten some questions in here. And if you have questions, please go ahead and add those to the Q&A panel. We'll go through them. And I have one question, last poll for everybody is if you want more information. I'm going to leave this up, but we're going to go through the Q&A till the end of the hour. All right, our first question, for series authorities that LOC has the author's name as part of it are not in LS2. I have to manually create them as series authority records. Is there a way to have it so they appear as authorized series authorities with just the series title?
There's 2 parts to that question. When development is planned, I'm currently working on the requirements to be able to display to appropriately handle the series titles that are in the personal name plus series title data fields. MARC allows a number of data fields where you have a name plus a title. And so LS2 cataloging was not designed to display that data in that fashion because it was meant to be a transition to using linked data where the names are always entered separately from titles. They're 2 separate pieces of data. And as a matter of fact, for 20 or 30 years, computers have always indexed the data separately. It's the search algorithms that bring the data back together. But anyway, we need to, in order to handle some issues that keep popping up with series titles, we're getting ready to do some development at some point this year to properly assign the authority type and properly display the data so that you can see a connection between the name and that series title. I don't yet know how exactly that's going to look in the editor, but we're working on that. So in the meantime, any local authority you create for a series title is your authorized form of that series title for your library. And so you can add a source note if you prefer to indicate that that's your authorized form. And so basically any local authority you create is that authorized form for your library. It's just with series titles, there's so many variations that libraries can choose to use that pretty much as long as you decide the form of the series that you want and create a local authority for it and use that consistently for all volumes in that series, you've got it covered. Now you can certainly refer to in that source note, you can provide the name plus the LC authority record control number for that authority record that has the name plus the title. Eventually, you'll be able to clean that up and move that to the appropriate LC authority record when we get that development done. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, very thorough. And there was another question that came in very right around the same time. So this might be a little repeat, but maybe there's some nuance you can detect. So they say when we delete a subject heading or series title and then go back into the record after saving and publishing, the heading or title we just deleted will come back.
Mhm.
Why can't we delete authorities without them reappearing?
Yeah, I almost started talking about it in my short demonstration. Then I thought, no, that's an overview. I'm not going to get into that kind of detail. But yes, and I'm planning a webinar on that, as a matter of fact, and a video covering that because that's hitting a lot of people are encountering this issue. Let me go back into a record so I can kind of explain what's going on. Is this the one? Yeah. It kind of depends on the title state. I went too far. None of these records have been published. So when I was showing my demonstration, I didn't think to bring in a title record that is like that. So would you email me and I'll set up a call and we'll talk through this. If you want to know before I get to the webinar on that. Let me go into this one. So
Yeah,
I could replace. So this title has not yet been published. So I can replace, I don't know if you're encountering this from titles that have previously been published or titles that have never been published. But typically when does this have subjects? Is this the one that has a subject? Yeah. If I want to replace, if this is a wrong subject, I do not want to replace that data in the same row because it's been published. Well, typically it's been published. The data field is still linked to that authority record that has murder, investigation, fiction. So even if I changed and took out investigation, for example, it will still be linked to that authority record. So when you publish it, authority verification sees that authority control number, finds the record, puts the heading back in place, even if you made edits. So if you want to completely change an authority controlled data field, that's especially when that title has been published previously, add another one, add a new field. So I want to add a whole new subject that's not murder investigation. I want to do murder fiction, say, or murder juvenile fiction, for example. I want to add this as a whole separate row. And I might save as draft, but usually I can just delete this row that has the one that I'm replacing. And then I save it as draft or I republish. And that will force, it's connected now to a new authority, that data field, and the other data field is gone. Did that help? But reach out to me. My email is kmumbauer@tlcdelivers.com. I'm on the listserv a lot, so you'll probably see me there. And I can get a separate call with you and talk about it. But I am planning a webinar content on that as well. I think it came in on the survey, maybe. One of my colleagues was telling me about that question. I thought, oh yeah, we should make a video on that.
Well, that's a couple of great teasers right there. One, we have another webinar, not scheduled yet, but coming soon, where Kim will go over that in more detail. And the second thing I was going to mention at the end, I'll say it now since you brought it up, is Kim does have a survey for current customers about any kind of webinar topics you'd like to see. So check out LS Community for that. Or when you get your email tomorrow letting you know that this recording has been available, you can respond back to that email and we'll get you in touch with the right people. I do see lots more questions coming in. They're flooding in. The next one is, can you explain C references? Thanks.
What aspect of C references in particular are you wondering about? C references, let me see if I can think of one. Wait, get out here.
I think this came in when you were creating a new authority.
Local authority record.
Yeah, towards the very bottom.
Trying to think if it's better to show you the C references here or actually in an online database that has C references.
Maybe just a quick overview. What is a C reference?
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick answer here. So when I create a local authority, I have that option to add a C reference. So what this means is if this is the authorized form of the entry, like I'll just make up one here. That's cooking. Well, yeah, it's going to give me a grief, but cooking for dogs. I'm just making this up. This is not a real subject. At any rate, C references would be things like this previously was known as cookery, dogs, alternative versions of the heading. That way, when authority control processes are running and it sees a heading that's cookery dogs, it's because it's checking. The authority control process is check not only the main entry for the authority record, but also the C references, the C from references, which is what these are here. And so if it sees a heading called cookery dogs, it's going to use this heading instead. So the C references are taking obsolete forms of the heading or different spellings of a name, like Mark Twain has different Samuel Clemens. So if a authority record, the main heading is Mark Twain. Can't remember which way it is now. It's been a while since I looked at that one. At any rate, C references are the alternative versions, alternative forms of the name over time, or in this case, topical subject over time, and they decide that this is not the right one, we're going to use this one instead. So C references are used to guide, in the authority control perspective, it guides the process to not use the heading that's in the record, the title record, but to use this one instead. And then when the authority record is saved, it's going to come back and update that title record and replace. So instead of cookery dogs in the record title record, it's now going to show cooking for dogs. I hope that helped.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Makes it a little bit more user-friendly or the language you want to be using in your catalog.
Yeah.
The next question, when verifying locally, is LS2 cataloging automatically creating a local authority, or is it using authorities already saved?
It depends. You won't know that until you're, unless you do a search and look it up. So if it finds a local verified authority in the database, in your database, or it finds that heading it's in a local unverified authority, I mean, that's going to confuse things. Scrap that part. All right, so you're importing the title, downloading a title, you're searching for a title, and if you search for a title and select local verified, then that is a local verified. But it may have been done previously, years before, where that authority record was assigned. If it's a new title that's just been added to the database and you have selected verify locally in that preferences setting down here, it's going to be a local verified authority based on, and the main heading will be the content that was in that title record. The only way to tell that that was recently done is if you're looking at the title record in that subfield 0 and you kind of notice that that number is kind of big, but that's not very helpful either. So it's really hard to tell if it's an existing local verified or a new local verified, because in the end, it doesn't matter. It's been verified. Does that help?
So a little bit of both.
Now, those reports that I mentioned, this local verified report shows the date the local authority record was created. That probably would be the best bet for you. I'm glad I thought of it in time. You could run a report, and if there's a particular heading you're interested in, you can look and see there's a column in the local verified report that gives you the date the authority record was created. So you'll know if it's done like yesterday or 6 years ago or 5 years. Okay, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll jump down to the next one. Hopefully we can get through most of these. Do we have to keep something like a romance writer's name and then parentheses romance writer next to it?
Yes, or actor. Yes, that's part of the authority record. So you see that a lot with narrator. There'll be a name of a person like Joshua Kane, parentheses, narrator, actor, romance writer. That is part of the authority record. If that's where you're seeing it is in the authority record, you want to keep that. That's the authorized form of name. Does that help?
Yeah. If not, they'll write back in. How do you select the correct author's name, like James Patterson, if you don't know his dates, etc., or even if they should be used for the authority? Is there a particular resource to search?
Gosh, there's a number of resources, and I cover this, and I'm going to be covering this in one of my videos. The best way is if I saw that Patterson, James, and there was a bunch of entries, and I wouldn't know which was the right one, I would look for some similar book by the same author. So let me go into cataloging, back into my record. So I know that I happen to know, so I would look up, search in my database for James Patterson and see what shows up. So I'm advanced search, contributor. I would go to an authority database, but this is also very helpful to see what other records I already own that are written by the same author. And if I see a commonality, like right here, they all have 1947 as a birth date. Right here, these are published titles. These are in my database. And I see similar things, or thrillers. He also writes for young adults, middle-aged children as well. So a little confusing. But at any rate, there's a bunch of James Pattersons, and they're writing thrillers. And I could even look up that series that was in that particular book, the Michael Bennett series. And I see him, this looks like a lot. They all have 1947. So that gives me a clue that that's probably the James Patterson for that Shattered book that I had brought in. And if I wasn't sure, I would go to an authority record. I'm about to do a whole video covering that and explain how you read the authority records. But in the authority record, they often list as source notes, they'll list other works by the author. And you might find the book you're cataloging in there, listed in there. But it will describe with RDA standards, they're also adding bits of data that help you identify that this is a writer of novels, of thrillers, of suspense fiction, and that would be the James Patterson that I would use. I'm covering this in a lot of my webinars and authority management, any kind of authority management. I'm going to talk about all those decision points and how you work through that.
Yes.
I'll be
as you all can
talking.
tell, Kim is the expert on all things authority. We only get her for the hour today, but she can talk about this for days or months, I believe.
Yes, I would be happy to. And I am going to talk about authority records and how to read them and decision making as my first webinar that's coming up soon.
Perfect. There is a question in here about the 490 field, but they also mentioned it might be a one-on-one. So I'm going to follow up with that individual after the webinar. Someone's asking, what's the difference between subject fields, murder versus murder fiction?
It's the same. Let's see. Let me think of a better way to discuss this.
Maybe a better way to ask it is, would you use one over the other if they're similar?
You can, okay, so this one, let me click on this. That would help. I've done a lot of cataloging in fiction, so I know this is a common authority record. So the authority record contains murder, which is the main term, but it also includes these subdivisions, investigation and fiction. That's all part of the authority record. That's why I mentioned that if I was trying to take out investigation, I wouldn't want to do it in this field because this is all part of the same authority record. Now, if I want to take out investigation, I would add another subject of just murder. And there might be fiction, I can't remember now. There is an authority record that's just murder fiction. So it's more about the content of the work. Is this about an investigation of a murder case, which I think it is? This is more appropriate, right? It's an investigation of a murder, but it's also fiction. Or is it about murder in general, just murder? Then it's fiction. That would be murder fiction would apply. I don't know if that helped. It's having to do with the content you're dealing with.
Okay. Well, while you're on this screen, I have a couple questions from different folks that maybe you can answer here. One person wants to know if you can reorder the subject names headings. So on that screen, are you able to reorder them?
No, not yet. And I got we have this product called LS Ideas. And so where all of you can submit ideas for improvements, and we call them ideas. There is an idea there to not move. It rearranges the order automatically. And it's not always the way the cataloger wants to see it. They like it in a certain order when they enter it, and they don't want to see it move around. And it does move around because ultimately, and so we have a development idea to make that so it stays there or so you can reorder it. Essentially, when the title is published, I think this is new development is coming out in the next release 5.8. It's going to go, subfield order is going to be applied, and it's going to be numeric by the field number, but within this field, like all of the topical subjects that are in one type of data field, there's no order to that. It's just however it was entered. When it comes to search and discovery, it doesn't matter the order in the record because no one sees the record. They're searching for individual pieces of the record. So ultimately, it doesn't matter. There used to be a guideline in AACR2 where you put the primary subjects ahead of the other related subjects, and that no longer is in RDA. As far as I recall, I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me on that. I'll have to get into RDA toolkit and confirm. It's been a while since I looked up that guideline. But now it doesn't really matter because computer processing, it's just all data. So in the days of card printing, card catalog, then you would want to have them in a certain order, but that isn't true anymore.
So if that is you who asked that question, jump into LS Ideas and upvote that. So we
Yeah, there's a vote. You can
list.
add your vote to that
Yep.
idea.
All right. There are so many more questions, but I'm going to cap it at this last one, and we'll follow up afterwards through various channels. We'll post some stuff on the catalogers listserv, and Kim has many webinars coming up soon. So the last question is a follow-up to one that came up earlier when records disappearing when they republish, and you had answered that very well. They're also asking about notes fields, usually from a Z3950. Is that similar to what you're talking about, or is that something else?
Are you talking about, I'm not sure if they're referring to local notes. There was an issue that just got fixed coming out in the next release where a local note was in like a 591 or a 595 or something, and it was disappearing. But that's been fixed. I don't know if this is what you're referring to exactly, but there are also, when you download records from Z3950 sources, they often have a lot of other note fields that are in the MARC record, but they don't appear in the editor because there's a lot of I think there's last count 120 different note fields you could have in a MARC record. And so we only display the top 30 maybe. And so you can see them in the MARC record, but you can't see them in the editor. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. There's no harm in them. They just sit there. So
I would say if you have an example of that, send that through to support, and we can
yeah.
let you know if it's this new fix that Kim mentioned, or maybe get you on a different track to figure that out.
There's also a form on Cataloger's Corner where you can upload a screenshot. You could submit a question, and you could upload a screenshot if you wanted to.
That's a good reminder. Thanks. All right. So all those other questions, we'll follow up with those. But Kim, if you don't mind going back to that last slide. And I'll mention that this is being recorded, so we will be available starting tomorrow at tlcdelivers.com/webinars. And starting tomorrow, February is Library Lovers Month. So to honor that, in a couple of weeks, our next webinar on Valentine's Day is going to be all about how TLC loves libraries. So we hope to see you back for that one, if not sooner, with one of Kim's excellent webinars that are coming up coming up quickly. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Kim, thank you so much for lending us your expertise. I know you can talk cataloging all day, and I think
could
get some shirts that say "I heart authorities."
That's a good idea. I'd
more.
buy them.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.